Welcome back to some more art fun, everybody. If you haven't yet, you're going to want to get out your visual pun planning sheet. We are going to be using that today. Of course, if for some reason you don't have this, you can always print it out. So go into our daily slides, our landing page slides, and click on Visual Pun Planning Sheet. Make a copy and print it out. But this is the page that we're going to be working on today. So go ahead and get that out. Today's going to be all about learning how to shade. So you can tell we're taking a little bit of time out from actually planning what our pun itself is going to be. And we're just going to start with once we're ready, how would we shade it? So for those of you that maybe are still kind of in the process of drawing your pun out onto a sheet, you've got a little bit of a buffer in our timeline now. As a reminder, as of right now, what we should have is basically a full-size sheet of paper that has our pun drawn on it, almost as if it was a coloring book. Okay, so it should be really nice and big, like filling the sheet. It could be this way or this way, either way, but it should really fill the sheet. It should just be the outlines, no shading or anything like that yet, and it's your draft, meaning we are still going to transfer it onto nicer paper, but for now, we're going to kind of leave it sit as we learn about the shading process that we're going to need to know in order to do those steps once we're ready for it. So go ahead and get this sheet up. You're going to also want to have out all of your charcoal pencils. If you look, they look all the same, don't they? But if you look really carefully, you're going to notice, like this one says 4B. You probably can't see it on the camera, but if you look at your own, you can. So one says 4B, HB, 6B. It's hard to see, but look closely, and 2B. So I want you guys to put these in order from HB. H means that it's I always think of it as hard, because it's the hardest of all of the leads, meaning that when I push it onto the paper, it's going to transfer the least. Kind of think of it as if you were to use like a rock that you picked up off the ground versus a piece of chalk. The rock is really hard, so if you were to try to scrape that onto pavement, there isn't going to be much that transfers, right? Because the rock is very solid, very hard. Whereas if you use chalk, which is a very soft material, it's going to transfer more onto the concrete because it is so soft. So that's going to be more like our 6B. So where's my 6B? That's that one. And I'm just kind of putting them in order here. You can see I've got my examples of what they look like. Here is my 4B and here is my 2B. So HB, 2B, 4B, 6B. And basically, once again, the smaller the number, the more densely packed and hard the pencil is, and the less it's going to go onto the paper. So I'm just going to show you, and keep them in order so you guys know. I'm just going to show you what I mean. So here's the HB. I'm going to push with the same amount of pressure on all of them. Here's HB. See, I'm taking the 2B next. Same amount of pressure. You can see that's a little bit darker, right? With the same amount of pressure. Keep them in order. Here's my 4B. Whoa, okay, now that's really starting to get darker without even trying. Same amount of pressure. And my 6B. Oh my goodness, yeah, look at that one. So much darker, I'm barely even pushing. So that's just like how naturally they work, okay? We're going to use that to our advantage, knowing that HB is the softest and 6B is the hardest, and of course, this softest as far as like how light it is, and then this one's going to be the darkest. So knowing that, we're going to use this for these lighter areas. And we're going to use things like the 6B here, the 4B maybe around there, the 2, and the H. Okay, so we'll use our different pencils to our advantage. Another thing that I also wanted to bring up is simply how we hold the pencil. Okay, so normally when we're writing, we hold a pencil like this, or some variation of it, and we use just that tip as we are drawing on here. Okay, so like this is how I would write. Cool, okay, but we're not writing, we're shading, and we don't really want our shading to to look liney per se. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pencil, and I want you to simply flip it like that. Do you see how my pencil, it was here, right? I'm just flipping it so that it's kind of being held, and the base of it is by my wrist instead of floating up here in the air. Okay? What that's going to do is now, instead of the tip being the area that's touching the paper, it's going to be all of this. So like, what, maybe 1/4 of an inch is going to be touching the paper. So notice the difference between that and this, how much more area I can cover quicker and how much less liney it looks. Okay? Another thing that's cool about this, the further back I hold it, the less pressure there's going to be on the pencil, and the lighter it's going to be. Look at that. From where I was holding it before to how I'm holding it now, I'm pushing the same. I'm not using more muscles or less muscles. As I go closer, just naturally, I'm going to push harder because it's closer to the tip, right? So it's like gravity doing its work. As I get really close here, same amount of pressure, and you can see the difference. It almost looks like I used different pencils. That was all with the same pencil. All right? So those are some tricks as we get to this portion here. You can see I already got a start, so maybe I'll start on this one just to give you guys a little bit more of an overview here. So let's see, what one am I working with? This is my HB, okay? So this is white. We're just gonna leave that one be. This one here, this is where we're gonna start. It is the lightest of all my shading, so I'm gonna start with my HB, the hardest of all the pencils, meaning it's gonna transfer the least. And I'm going to start with my hand way back here because I really want to get this super light. Okay, I usually I go from corner to corner. That's what I tend to do. And if you need to erase outside of this, you know, you can always bring that eraser back. So I like to go from corner to corner, then I like to turn it, and I like to go from my other corner to other corner. Now this, you are your own artist, so you're going to have to find what works best for you. Through practice, I have found that this is what works best for me. But you find your rhythm as an artist. Okay, then I like to go from side to side. We're just kind of getting rid of that lininess that might happen as we're shading. And I really like to think of shading as a building process. We can always very easily go darker by adding more layers and pushing harder, right? It's harder if you're too dark to start, it's harder to erase it to get it how we want without it looking all smudgy and kind of icky. So I like to think of it as a building process, and you continue to build up as you go. So honestly, by the time I get here, you know, I might be going over that same spot 6 different times, maybe more. Who knows? I'm going to stick with my HB here, and I moved my hand up. I don't know if you noticed that. I moved my hand up just a little bit. So I'm not really changing the pressure from my muscles. I'm just changing my hand positioning, and it automatically is making it a little bit darker. Notice how this is a practice. If I'm a little bit over the lines, I'm not worried about that yet. We're just practicing our shading techniques today. Okay? And our goal is we want to kind of blur our eyes. Can we get this to match that? That's what we're trying to do all the way across. So I'm going to kind of zoom forward here. So let's say we're at, let's see, so maybe like these two I would do with your HB. This one could be HB or 2 Bs, 4 Bs, maybe in here. And then of course these last two we're going to use 6 Bs. So let me go to my 6B. There it is. And just show you. So with this one, you know, let's pretend we're all the way over here now. And I'm going to come nice and close to the front of it. And notice how dark this one gets. Okay. So once again, it doesn't really matter which square you're working on. Your goal is to kind of blur your eyes and get these to match by the end of it. And it's going to be a process, okay? So don't think that this is going to take 5 minutes. Honestly, if I were to do a good job and fill out the whole thing, you can see mine are only half done so far. But this would probably take me a good, I'm going to guess 20, 25 minutes to do this whole thing and to do it well. So don't feel rushed in this. This is a learning process. This is like practicing that piano piece over and over again. Okay? Notice I am building, I'm turning my paper. I still think I want it darker. I'm going to bring it a little closer to the tip and push a little harder. There we go. And we're getting there. Okay, once you get this done up here, your next challenge is going to be to do the same thing on the guitar. I always, always, always start with the lightest portions first. Where's my HB? There it is. So, seeing as nothing is truly all the way white, notice I'm holding my HB way back here. I'm just going to go and give it all one soft layer like this. Moving in different directions. And just so that this demo isn't taking forever, I'll kind of move through. I'll cruise quickly here. Here's my 2. I'm going to start bringing in some of those. And so once again, our goal for next class is simply to try to replicate what you see here, down here, what you see here, over there. Okay, and of course, if you haven't yet, you're also going to want to get your pun approved and that large drawing done as well, where it looks kind of like a coloring book, full sheet, ready to go as well if you haven't already. And we'll see you next time.